Okay, so the complaint I had yesterday, was that, I say complaint, comment, very mild comment. I don't want to give you the impression that I was being attacked or I'm getting defensive or anything. It was commented that I talked too much in yesterday's lesson in particular, and the parent wonders if I could maybe get some more skating involved and less talking. And I've actually apologized to another parent for this previous in the year, and I've had previous years where I've had to, I felt I had to comment on this. So I'm going to go into it. First of all, very obviously, I usually don't just chat about anything. It's usually it's all directly related to skating. And I've marked it down into 4 specific categories that I'm trying to get across when I'm speaking in my lessons. The first and major one that takes up the vast majority of the time is, maybe I shouldn't do this in this order. Nah, let's do this in this order. I spend a lot of time explaining things, explaining concepts, explaining ideology, explaining, it's not as simple as your arm needs to be 2 inches higher, or your arm needs to go from here to here, or you need to point your toe more. If skating was all that kind of correction, anyone could do it. I'm more interested in promoting an ideology, a way of thinking, a mentality, an approach to skating, an approach to work, an approach to things. And when I correct something, I don't want to have to correct it again. I want them to understand why I'm correcting, and I want them to be able to apply that correction to other things they do in skating to save overall time. And if I have to spend 15 minutes lecturing and explaining one thing in order to avoid 4 hours in the next 5 years explaining that over and over and over again in different ways, it's going to end up saving you time. It is. Once I know they understand it, I can just refer to that very quickly and get that correction made immediately, assuming I've dealt with it right the first time and explained it correctly and they understand it. So I spend a lot of time explaining things in different ways to make sure different kids understand it. People don't understand things the same way. Sometimes I have to go over things in a bunch of different ways. 2, the second thing is I always want to make sure they actually understood what I said. So I ask a lot of questions in my lessons. I want them to understand the terminology. I want them to understand in their own words what I just said. I don't just want them to spit back what I said. I want them to have absorbed it, processed it, can utilize and bring it up, and can reiterate it in their own words, their own language, something they'll understand. So I'm constantly asking questions and asking people to make their own analysis of what they did and how they could make it better. I want my skaters to be self-sufficient as much as possible, so that when they're working on their own, they're fixing things. And the only way I can do that is if I know they understand what's going on, I know they understand what's doing, and all that takes conversation, all that takes questions, all that takes talking. And the two of those first 2 categories often overlap. I'll often explain something for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then ask questions about it. Get them to re-explain it to me. Give them a couple scenarios to explain it to me. So it ends up being this 5, 6, 7 minute conversation. I think that's the majority of my chatting. And it is a lot. I do that more than I have people do things. I want people to understand what they're doing, not just to be able to do it. 3, the third issue that I chat for is, and this is something every coach does. The first 2, not so much. There are coaches that will just give very specific technical corrections, make things quick, make things simple, get the kid out and skating, and I'm sure a lot of them do it because they know the parents from the stand look at that and say, oh, look how much they're getting done. Whereas if they look at me just chatting for 20 minutes in a half-hour lesson, they're like, oh, they're not doing anything. No, we're doing a lot. We're doing a ton of stuff. And it creates incredibly fast and good and reliable and long-term results for me. I'm allowed to talk without you, She hates it when I talk without her. Somebody's very selfish. So the third thing is, and every coach does this, is we're supposed to get to know our skaters and get to know their situation, get to know their mentality, get to know their emotional state, get to know their physical state. If they're coming to the rink with an injury, or if a pet just died, or if they just failed a test, or if they just went to a birthday party and had a bunch of cake and hot chocolate and pop. You know, all of that is going to massively affect the way they skate that day, the way they absorb their lessons. So that's all information we really need, and in order to get that, we're supposed to spend like the first minute or two of a 15-minute lesson just chatting and figuring out where their head is that day. It's also, there's a saying, you're supposed to be friends with our students, but not best friends. Ow. So we're supposed to develop some kind of rapport with the skater, where they feel safe to tell us stuff, where they feel okay sharing information with us. And that, again, involves communication. And we can do some of that off ice, but I don't really talk with my skaters off ice, not very often. Often there's sessions one after the other, and you don't have any opportunity to really spend any time off ice with them, and it really shouldn't be necessary anyway. I mean, this is a minute out of 15 minutes. It develops trust, it develops communication, it develops rapport, it develops an understanding of the way each other communicates verbally, but also body language and other things. So it helps get technique across later on if we have some format for speaking to each other. Also, people usually have speech idiosyncrasies, speech quirks that people have to get to learn, facial tics, whatever. I know I heavily use sarcasm in my lessons, and I actually use it as a test for my skaters to see if they can figure out by themselves whether I'm being sarcastic or not, whether they know that when I say, oh, that was really good, am I being serious or not? And I try not to let them know, because I want them to know themselves whether they've done good or not. I don't want them to be relying on me for feedback. They should understand whether they've done well or not. Anyway, that's another. So this is all communication oriented. The last thing, and this is probably, as far as I know, this is unique to me, completely unique to me, and it's one of the things that I do that I think differentiates me from other coaches and makes me, it's one of the things that makes me more effective than the average coach. And that's that I'm constantly pushing kids to their limits, physically, emotionally, technically, mentally, behaviorally, maybe not behaviorally, but every other way. I'm trying to push their limits every day. That's the whole concept of sport. If people don't want to be pushed to their limits, what are they doing in a sport? People should want to be pushed as hard and as fast as they possibly can. There's going to be the occasional error where you push them too hard and you end up getting upset, lasting feelings, irritation, anger, temper tantrums, explosive reactions. And a lot of coaches are so wary of getting to that place that they never push their students. Or never try to get anywhere near that barrier where they're trying to up their excellence. They're getting to push themselves more and more and more. I push it all the time. Almost every lesson, every day, I try to push that something as far as it will go, right to the fence. The way that I get away with this most of the time, and the kids don't mind, parents mind a lot more than the kids, the way that I deal with it with the kids is if I feel I've gone too far, or I'm about to go too far, or I've pushed them right against the fence, I pull them back by being goofy, by being strange, by having a non sequitur comment, by going off on a weird tangent, by taking complete context out of what we're doing in the lesson, by kind of mentally shaking things up, verbally shaking things up. I'm a very goofy, weird, strange guy anyway, so this kind of goofiness really lends itself to me, but I find I'm able to keep at a very high level of expectations. I can set the bar super, super high, so long as I'm willing to be aware and alert of when they're getting to their limits. And if they get to their limits, or near the limits, or over their limits, I can pull them back by just suddenly doing something wacky and crazy and silly, which is fun. Fun for me, fun for the skaters, and kind of takes the pressure off of all the intense criticism and corrections I'm making constantly in my lessons. And kids react to it very, very well. Obviously, it has to be timed differently, and some kids can take more pushing than others, and some kids need a little more goofiness than others. The only real issue I ever have with this is sometimes kids can't, the goofiness, the silliness, ends up being their focus, and they end up being goofy and silly themselves and lose the fact that they're supposed to have focus and poise and attentiveness and listening skills and respect for me in the lessons. The silliness and the goofiness can take away from that. And it really is a very tough balancing act to be able to focus and push yourself and still then be able to ease off. So basically when I'm coaching, I either have the gas pedal straight to the floor, or I'm easing off or I'm slamming the brake on, I guess, with goofiness, with a goofy comment, a goofy action, a goofy silliness, something. And I generally have this rhythm to it where I kind of regularly do the two of them. A rhythm that changes with each individual kid depending on their needs. Anyway, so those are all the reasons why I sometimes engage in extra conversation, extra communication, extra standing around apparently doing nothing. There's maybe a few other minor things, but that's like probably 95% of what I'm doing in lessons is it's all geared towards making them better skaters, better athletes, better students, and it all works. Now sometimes you have to get to a test day or a competition or a few test days and competitions to actually see that it's working, because parents really get the impression in practice that maybe it's not working, maybe I'm not doing things, maybe like from practice to practice I've had a lot of parents that have been very nervous, very wary of my process. And they really, once they get to a test day or a competition, they're like, oh, well, I don't know how he did it, but that was pretty good. And I don't mind that. I get it. There is an intellectual, thought-out reason behind why I do things. Everything. Absolutely everything I do is analyzed to death, hundreds and hundreds of hours of thought and analysis and preparation and observation put in. And I don't necessarily do things because it will make me popular. I don't do things because other coaches do them. I certainly don't do them because they're expected of me or to make things easier on me. My only concern is making my skaters better, as fast and as good and as efficiently and productively as I can. So that is a much more in-depth explanation as to why I might chat a bit too much in lessons for some parents to be able to deal with. It doesn't happen in every lesson either. It's just now and then. Bye.